Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American Priestess. And I've just returned from an extended overseas trip, and I'm coming to you at home again for a beautiful Hebrunes reading. And as I'm attempting to clean up my very overgrown garden, I'm finding beauty in the flowering herbs and weeds as well. But I brought today a timeless reading with 3 different herb flowers. And again, these are herbs that one would use for cooking, or for spells, or for just enjoyment. And yet, in this state, where they are gone to flower, they're not particularly how we see them, how we use them. So for today's reading, I'm going to give you a choice of 3 different herb flowers. And you get to choose which one you resonate with today. And then I'll put the timestamps below in the description, and you'll be able to bring yourself straight to the reading. We're going to do a Hebrew reading, and maybe we'll pull out a tarot card as well. So to start off, we have this beautiful flower. This is the flower of the oregano. And it's really gorgeous. It looks almost like it's braided, like a little tiny green hallot. And these gorgeous little tiny purple, pinky flowers on the ends. That's what an oregano flower looks like. For group number 2, we're going to take a look at this basil flower. You can see that you've got a little bit of basil leaf at the bottom, but it grows up in these ascending stalks. It reminds me of the levels of the Sephirot, or the heavens. And then out of each of these comes, again, a light pink, whitish flower. So that's group number 2. And then for group number 3, I have the flower of the chive. This is a garlic chive, I believe. Maybe an onion chive. I think it's a garlic chive. And it comes up, and at this point the chive is very, very stiff. It's not really usable. It still smells oniony, which I love. And then it has this incredible umbrella of little white star-shaped flowers, and they are 6 pointed stars on each of them. Some of them haven't even opened yet. So that's our choices today. We have oregano, basil, and chive. So take a moment. I wish you could smell them. They're very aromatic. Decide which of these is calling to you today, and I will see you in your readings. Hello, group number 1. Those of you who have chosen the beautiful oregano flower. Again, I'm just going to take a look at this again because it's spectacular with these little braided tufts. And oregano is that flavor that brings us the taste of pasta sauce, tomatoey, very, very fragrant and particularly savory. And when it goes to flower, it's just got this amazing shape. So we're going to set that off to the side. And we're going to pull out 3 Hebrunes today and do a brief reading, and we'll see what comes up for you. At the top, we have the letter Zayin. In the center, we have the letter Tet. And at the bottom, we have the letter Dalet. For those of you who chose the oregano, our top letter is the letter which is representing what is our current situation that we're in, and it's the letter Zayin. The letter Zayin is the number 7 in Gematria. So it corresponds to the day of Shabbat, and the Shabbat bride in particular, the Shabbat bride who is known as the Shekhinah in some circles. She is the indwelling presence of the feminine divine. It's a sword or a scepter. So it's about sovereignty, finding your personal sovereignty in a situation. And since it is the number 7, it's a completion number, as in something coming to an end. The 7 days of creation, this is the final day of creation. So something perhaps is coming to an end right now. Summer certainly is already, you feel the change in the air. This year of 5783 is coming to an end as Elul draws to a close where we are right now when I'm doing the reading. But maybe something else in your life is also coming to an end. And it has to do with the sense of smell. And I love that with regards to the herbs, because they, again, are very aromatic and fragrant right now. When we think about the Zion and the number 7, it brings up this idea of magic as well. Because, it's like a wand. It's a scepter. It's what a magician might use, like a wand, to bring power or to direct power, let's say. And there's all these associations with the number 7 and magic as well, because it has this idea of luckiness, the lucky number 7. So magic, there's all these cycles of 7. We have 7 weeks of the Omer every year. We have the 7 years of the Shemitah, which is the cycle of agricultural release and return. And in my reading of the tarot, the Zion corresponds to the emperor because of that sovereignty, because of that power. So something that's going on right now in your life is finding inner power, finding your own power, finding a way to use your sovereignty for a sense of magic and to bring things to a completion. Leaning into the indwelling presence of the feminine divine, and the concept of rest as well, because it is, again, affiliated with Shabbat and the Shabbat bride. And that sense of smell, that sense of really embodying the essence of something, really getting in close and pulling it in to your senses. In the center of our reading, we have the letter Tet. And the letter Tet is a cup or a vessel. It's something that is holding goodness within it. It's the first letter of the word Tov, which means good or goodness. And it also reminds us of the shofar. It's kind of curved like a shofar, the ram's horn that we blow at this time of year when I'm making the reading. And these, it's the number 9 in Gematria, so it refers to that shofar blasts. We have these sets of 9 that we do on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And so it has this idea of renewal, because it's the end of the year, the beginning of the year. Right now in the month of Elul, we are sounding the shofar every day. And then at the beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah, and in Yom Kippur, we sound it again. It's a wake-up call. And because it is the number 9, it also has this affiliation with the 9 months of gestation in the human body, which is, again, a birth, a rebirth, something renewing, something gestating right now. The center position of the reading has to do with what is challenging right now, what is possibly a fear or a challenge that's coming up in your life. And so we have this, the letter Tet being in that position would indicate to me that perhaps we're having difficulty with the gestation. We're having difficulty being present and sitting with the gestation of the situation. That there's something that's coming, maybe it's a little uncomfortable to be carrying it right now. That we have this inherent knowing that there's goodness within it, but it's hard to wait. It's hard to wait to see that come out. And this waiting for the renewal to happen. Renewal is a challenging thing, Teshuvah. It's this need to turn from things that are not working for us and find a new and correct way. And that's always challenging. And I correspond the Tet with the tarot card, the Empress, because she is abundant and fertile. It takes a lot of work to bring about that level of abundance and fertility. So right now the work is maybe happening inside a womb of some kind, inside oneself. And to find that goodness within it is sometimes challenging. Tet also is the sense of taste. In the Sefer Yetzirah, each of the letters is affiliated with a foundation or a sense. And so we've got smell and taste here, again, with the oregano. That's quite amazing because of the abundance of that and the flavor that comes with it. And again, as we come into a fertility cycle, as we come into this time of flowering, it may be challenging because we can't use the leaves anymore because we've come into flower. But the flowers are beautiful and the taste of them is quite amazing. And our final letter in this reading is the letter Dalet. And this is the outcome given our current circumstances and perhaps maybe a little bit of advice as well. Dalet is the letter that stands for a doorway. And so it's about passing through something onto the other side. It is about humility and the binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness as well. So there's some kind of gate that's coming up, some kind of transition that's happening. And again, because we're finishing with this year, we're finishing with whatever is coming to a completion with the Zion, and we're gestating right now, then that doorway happens and one has to pass through it. It's sometimes affiliated with the birth canal and the doorway that one has to pass through in order to get born. So this is a quite lovely set here, that we've got something coming to an end, some form of gestation, and then a birth that we walk through. And it's important to be humble as we move through that doorway, this liminal space. There's a transition point from now to the next thing, whatever it is. And sometimes we don't know what that is, but it's important to remain humble as we do so. I think of it oftentimes as ducking your head as you walk through the door so you don't smack your head on that door lintel. So it's important to, again, remember to stay humble and be open to what's coming next. The Dalet in my reading of the tarot to the Hebrunes corresponds to the death card. And death can be frightening, but it's not necessarily a literal death. It's a transition, something new. Something is coming to an end and new things are coming through. And so these transitions can feel like a death, even though they are in reality something that's just changing. It's changing from one state to another. And that's, in some sense, all death really is. That we have the divine with us regardless of the state we're in. So it's nothing to fear, but it is a transition to be aware of that's coming, that there's some kind of death or birth that is coming in the future, and that it's important to remain humble as we pass through that. So I do think I'm going to pull out one tarot card just to see what kind of additional messaging we can get for you on this particular Hebrunes reading today. Something that'll help you understand more clearly what exactly it is that we're trying to see here. And we have the Page of Wands. Lovely. So the Page of Wands is a card about new beginnings. The pages are all these characters who are setting off on a new adventure. And the Wands is about fire. You can see he's got a flowering staff. And I love that with regards, again, to the oregano, because we have this seemingly dead, unuseful stick, and yet it's got leaves coming off of it. It reminds me of the staff of Aaron that is flowering and was set up in the temple for many, many years. And it represents that ability for growth and renewal. And the Page of Wands, again, it's about fire. So it's about emotion, moving forward, being passionate about a thing, finding something new in the world, but setting off on that adventure. Just setting off again, anew. So I love that here. So we have the oregano, we have the letter Zion, which again looks a little bit like the staff, right? So he's got some kind of sovereignty. He's holding on to this staff that will help him to create the magic he needs to create in the world. Something to remind him of the indwelling presence as that staff begins to leaf out and bloom. That means there's life in these things. the ability to rest, using that staff to lean upon on your way so that you have some way to rest through it. And something to smell, something to remind us of the beauty in the nature, so that we have that. The challenge is the waiting. The challenge is the gestation period, the remembering that there is goodness within. When we're starting off on an adventure, it's almost impossible to know how things are going to turn out. And so really trusting in the goodness that is existent, and also being able to endure and wait for whatever it is that is coming into fruition. And when we do that, we've got the doorway. We've got that birth canal through which we need to pass in order for the new thing to begin. And it's a liminal space. It's this transitional space between what is now and what will be. And that's where we're coming in right now. So for those of you who chose the oregano flower, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Hello, those of you who chose number 2 herb, the basil flower. Put my hand behind so you can get some focusing here. So like I said, the basil flower is this sort of wand that has all of these little florets as they come up, and again a couple of little basil leaves at the bottom, and again a beautiful smell, amazing looking plant, and savory, this amazing savory flavor that comes with pesto, and I think of caprese. Of course, I just got back from Italy, so I'm thinking about all the good foods that I had there. But I have them here too. So, but I love that it's coming to flower. I love that it's got these levels, that it's grown up and blossomed here. So we're going to set that off to the side, and we're going to pull out 3 Hebrunes today for your reading, and we'll see what's coming up. Okay, at the top we have the letter Tzadi. In the center we have the letter Ayin. Interesting. And at the bottom, the letter Kuf. All right, starting at the top with the letter Tzadi, we've got this letter that for me just yells out justice. It's tzedek. It's tzadik. We just went through recently the Torah portion that said tzedek, tzedek, justice, justice, thou shalt pursue. So something about justice is coming up, something righteous, and it's this position in the reading is the position of what's happening right now, this need for some kind of justice, or tzedakah, which is mutual aid, some kind of giving in order to create balance, maybe reparations. And it's also the letter that begins the word tzayid, which means hunting, so looking for justice in the world, looking for the goodness. It is the letter that is the number 90 in Gematria, and the 90 is the number 9 times 10. So I think of it in terms of 9 months of gestation to an ultimate degree. There's some kind of something that is at the time of needing to be born. There's something this ultimate manifestation of gestation, maybe something you've been waiting for an incredibly long period of time, like Sarah, the matriarch, who was 90 years old when Yitzhak was born. So she's maybe a older woman who has been waiting for her whole life to give birth, and she's finally that's coming into fruition. So there's this idea of this justice. She's been waiting and waiting for something wonderful to come into her life, and now that's coming to fruition after so many years. So this ultimate manifestation of gestation, this ultimate manifestation of goodness. The letter Tet, which is the number 9 in Gematria, is the first letter of the word Tov, which means good. So 9 times 10 is this ultimate manifestation of the goodness that's happening and it is the tribe of Asher, who is the son of one of the wives of Yaakov, who came from a different tribe. She was not a native Hebrew. And there's some speculation that she brought with her some of her ancient gods. And I say that because in the Encyclopedia of Judaism, there's this notation that the two sons of Zilpah were Asher and God. God is a Semitic deity of luck, and Asher has reference to the Asherah, who is the feminine divine who dwells within the trees. And Tzadi is the letter that corresponds to the month of Shevat, which is where we celebrate the New Year of the Trees, and it is the tribe of Asher. So it has this idea of the veneration of the sacred feminine divine through trees, and that justice that comes with the honoring of those trees which provide oxygen for us on this planet. So there's a lot going on here with the Tzadi right now. This idea of the righteousness, this idea of justice, this idea of hunting for good in the world, and this concept of mutual aid and possibly reparations are happening right now. And when I think of it in terms of the tarot cards, I correspond it to the Justice card. It has this idea of fairness and balance and ethics that is there. So something is up right now around justice, and again, possibly gestation, an ultimate manifestation of gestation of good, something that you've been waiting for to come to fruition, finally coming in. And our central letter in the reading is the letter Ayin. And it's funny because it looks a little bit like Tzadi. They're two letters that get confused a lot because they're similar in shape. But the letter Ayin is the letter that represents an eye. And you can see it looks a little bit like a fancy makeup eye, if you look at it this way, or two eyeballs and eye stalks that go back toward the optic nerve in the brain, if you look at it from above on a CAT scan, for instance, or MRI. So it's about vision. It's about being watched over by the divine and being able to see clearly your way forward. And since this is in the center part of the reading, the center is the letter that is the challenge in our situation, or perhaps a fear in your situation. So the Ayin is saying that maybe what's challenging right now is being able to see your way forward, knowing what's happening next. Of course, we never can possibly know what's going to happen next. So it's maybe challenging to see right now. Or maybe there's some fear around not being watched over by the divine. We can trust in the fact that the divine is always watching over us, whether we see it or not, whether we can believe it or not. Ayin is the number 70 in Gematria, and there's just a ton of associations with 70. 70 is, of course, 10 times 7, 7 being the number of days of creation. So this is ultimate completion number, and then we've got this gestation that's happening, and then an ultimate completion that's happening right after that. There were 70 descendants of Noah. There were 70 members of Jacob's tribe that went down to Egypt. There are 70 elders of Moses wandering through the desert. There are 70 seats on the Sanhedrin. And so it's got all these connotations with large groups of people with a leader attached to them. So maybe there's some challenges right now with being a leader or a leader in your community that there's some concern about. But whatever the case is, it corresponds to the tribe of Dan. And Dan means judgment. It's Dan in English. Dan, which is the Dalet Nun, it also spells Din, which means judgment. And so I correspond this to the tarot card of judgment. So you've got justice and judgment both here. So there's a concern about judgment, a concern about maybe whatever is going to be the conclusion of this. This perhaps a fear, again, of not being able to see one's way forward, and also about whether the judgment will be just. And I think that we can trust, again, in the divine, that the divine is watching over us, that justice will be fulfilled, regardless of our fears about the situation. And in our final position in the reading, we have the letter Kuf. The letter Kuf, this position represents the outcome given the current circumstances and possibly a little bit of advice. So the letter Kuf is the first letter of the word Kadosh. Kadosh meaning sacredness. It's the blessing that is given by the angels to the divine. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, holy, holy. So it's about sacredness. The outcome is going to be sacred, whatever it looks like. And sometimes that's challenging to accept. But even when things look dark, even when things aren't exactly how we wish they turned out, there's sacredness within. Interestingly, the kuf also is the first letter of the word kof, which means monkey. And so it has something to do with animal nature. You can see it's got a little tail here hanging down. So I think about it in terms of the balance between that which is sacred and that which feels very base and animalistic. But we are animals in our reality, in our bodies. We are animals that live on this planet. And we have to figure out, how do we balance our animal nature and our base desires with that which is sacred. So as we are moving through the balance there, again, when we think about justice, I think about scales, I think about that balance. And here down at the bottom, we're balancing the holy and the profane, the animal nature and the sacred. In Hebrew, the word kadosh is translated as holy, but more accurately, it means that which is designated for service to the divine. Because anything can be made sacred on some level. Like if you have some object and you sanctify it by you saying, this is now a thing I am using for sacred purposes, it becomes kadosh. Similarly, you can take anything that is been sanctified and desecrate it and make it unsacred by using it for something that is not for service to the divine. So finding that balance between what seems mundane and how do we make it sacred. Finding our animal nature, perhaps, and turning it toward a sacred purpose. And it is the number 100 in Gematria. And interestingly, 100 is the number of years old Avraham was when Yitzhak was born. So we have both Sarah and Avraham here, this idea of the sacred, the justice that came to Sarah when she waited so long to give birth, and the sacredness that came to Abraham when that promise was fulfilled that he would have children through his wife, Sarah. And in my reading of the tarot cards as they correspond to the Hebrunes, Kuf corresponds to the magician card. So having all the tools that one needs to create, and interestingly, like I said, this looks like a little bit of a wand. So we have this idea of using tools, creating them, making them be sacred, and then using them for service to the divine. Using one's own will and resourcefulness and intention, and transforming what might feel like animal or base nature into something that is holy and sacred. So I am going to pull out one tarot card just to give a little further clarity on this particular reading for you today. Let me give it a little shuffle, see what comes out. I just noticed that, interestingly, that the backs of these cards have these little white flowers that look very much like the flowers of my basil plant here. Ooh. Let's give it a little bit. That one jumping out. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, we have the 8 of Wands. Lovely. So this is great because here we have all these wands, and you can see they all have leaves on them. They look so much like this, right? So we have this this speed. 8 of Wands tends to be about just things happening really quickly. So something is coming. We've been waiting a really long time. We've been waiting 90 years to give birth to Yitzhak. And suddenly this is all going to happen. That there's some fear around whether we're being watched over by the divine, that this completion, that it will be just, that we'll have the judgment, whatever will be just, and that we need to balance the animal nature along with the holiness of it. But it's happening quickly, whatever it is. The wands are all about fire, and so there's passion here. There's these wands are being cast through the air. We can't see who's throwing them, and we can't see where they're going exactly, although I see some water in the background and some desert, it looks like. So we have something coming very quickly, and I think that's great with regards to our reading here, because we have the basil, again, looks like that wand. It looks like that flowering, that leafing out wand. The idea of justice, the idea of judgment, the idea of holiness, all coming together to bring about a beautiful new beginning that has been long awaited for. So for those of you who chose the basil stalk, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Hello, group number 3. For those of you who chose the chive flower today, I just want to take a look at it again. We have, like I said, this just umbrella of little tiny 6-petaled flowers here. And it's got this gorgeous little collar on it. And some of these flowers are still not quite open here. Maybe I'll stick it in some water and see if they decide to bloom as well. So a very, very abundant flowering of that which has, finished its cycle of growth and use in terms of culinary experience, and yet it still provides this beauty. And again, a smell. It's a very oniony smell coming from that, and I think that's gorgeous and lovely. I'm going to set this off to the side. We're going to pull out some Hebrunes that will give us a insight into what's happening right now. At the top of our reading, we have the letter Beit. In the center, the letter Samech. And at the bottom, we have the letter Yud. Okay, lovely. So at the top of our reading, the letter Beit in the position of what is going on right now, what's happening for you right in this moment in time. And the letter Beit is the number 2, and it is the letter that corresponds to the home, the house, the binary transformation of life and death. So Beit is the second letter of the alphabet, but it is the first letter of Torah. So this idea of the second being first, it's a theme that we have over and over and over again in the Torah, with the second son being elevated above the eldest son, that the second letter is the first letter of the Torah. And it's a house, but I think of it in terms of, it can be any building actually, but I think of it in terms of, where do I live? When I see the letter Beit and I think, oh, it's my home, I don't think of it as a building. It's, where am I? Where am I making myself at home? And so it can be anywhere. But the one home I take with me everywhere is my body. I live in my body at this moment in time. I live on this planet wherever I go. I haven't figured out how to get off world physically yet. Not that I'm interested in doing that at this moment. But again, that transformation of life and death, where do you land on that continuum between choosing life in every situation and being complacent to settle into death? So Beit is giving us this choice. It's giving this choice of life and death. It's the letter that corresponds to the day of Shabbat in the week. So it has this idea of rest as well. So I think what's going on right now, for those of you who chose this chive flower, is something is up for you in your body, where you're feeling comfortable in your home. How are you finding yourself being able to rest? Where do you rest? Where do you find a place to take care of your body so that you can rest and be comfortable wherever you are. It's also the letter that corresponds to the mouth in the body. So maybe a little bit about speaking, being able to say what you need to comfortably, but also maybe about ingesting things, taking things into your mouth and enjoying them, nourishing your body and resting appropriately. I think of it in terms of, as it corresponds to the tarot cards, in terms of the world card, because it is about dwelling. Where do we dwell? We can dwell anywhere on the world, but right now we live on this planet, we live in the world. So it's about a dwelling place, and it's also about that beginning and ending, that binary transformation of life and death. Similarly, in the world card and tarot, there's that idea of something coming to an end, but also that life that is there, that brings us to that place. So whatever is up for you right now, something having to do with rest and your body, taking care of yourself wherever you are, and taking care of the planet, maybe taking care of the world, recognizing your place in the world. Our central letter, which is the position of what's a challenge right now, is the letter Samekh. And Samekh is the letter that means to be surrounded. It's about cycles and circles and seasons, things transitioning, but also about boundaries, about being surrounded with protection, being surrounded with support. And in the Paleo Hebrew, it looked like a thorn. And so this idea of setting up good boundaries that have some thorns in them to protect yourself from that which might come in and attack, or from letting in those who are not welcome in your space. And in ancient times, they would build or plant thorny hedges around an estate to protect the livestock from predators, but also to protect them from getting out into the wild, into the wilderness. So interestingly, with the bait here, which is about home, the challenge seems to be about setting up boundaries to protect yourself, maybe protect your body, protect your energy for sure, but also to just physically protect yourself. Like a rose that has thorns, it frequently will protect itself from people who would just come along and pick it. You have to be quite aware of how to handle a rose. And, I think about it in terms of the chive here. It's got these beautiful flowers too, and it's developed this characteristic flavor to protect itself from predators and insects, but humans turned out to like it. So that's it kind of went, and yet we plant it, so it worked in its favor. It may seem like it didn't work in its favor because the humans are still eating it, but we also plant it, so it's helped with its reproduction. Back to the Samekh, we have this idea of support and, again, being surrounded. And I think of it in terms of its correspondence to the tarot cards as the Wheel of Fortune. So it's about cycles and wheels and changes and luck as well. So the challenge right now for you is, how do we set up appropriate boundaries that are permeable? We don't want to set up walls that nobody can get in, but we do want to make sure that we are vetting anyone we let into our space, into our home space. We don't want to just be wide open to energies that might not be healthy for us. So, and Samekh is the foundation of agitation in the Sefer Yetzirah. It has that connotation of something is agitating. So, again, with regards to what is a challenge right now, is that something is agitating you. Maybe it's propelling you toward change, but it's uncomfortable right now. Or there may be a fear around not having good boundaries, or a fear about not feeling surrounded or supported with protection and comfort. But again, back to the cycle aspect of it, everything changes. Everything goes through these phases. So the wheel is turning. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling unprotected, know that that will not remain like that forever. And in our final position, the position which represents the outcome, or maybe a little advice in the situation, we have the letter Yud. And I love this. The letter Yud is the 1 point. It represents a seed or a sperm, something that is being planted that will grow. It's that 1 point out of which everything can burst forth. Like a seed, you might have an apple seed that you plant, and then a tree grows, and then you have unlimited seeds and more unlimited number of apple trees, etc., nesting inside each seed. There's the potential for everything. It's like the atom that is like building block of the universe. It is that first letter of the name of the divine, the Yud He Vav He. And it is the foundation of sexuality. So there may be something, some kind of union that is coming, or an understanding about one's own sexuality that is coming in the near future for you. It is the smallest of all the letters, and yet it contains so much. It contains everything in the universe within it. It's like that 1 point of the Big Bang, the point into which the divine contracted in order to make space for the universe to be created. So that potential there. And it is the number 10 in Gematria. So it has this connotation of the oneness of all times 10. So this ultimate manifestation of oneness that, again, the divine contracted down into one space, but it held an unlimited potential within it. It is the letter that corresponds to the current month of Elul that we are in as I'm doing this reading, and the constellation Virgo as well. It is corresponding to the tribe of Gad. Gad is the child of Zilpah, one of the wives of Jacob, and she is said to have come from a different tribe than the Hebrews and possibly brought some of her own gods with her. And that is posited because in the Encyclopedia of Judaism, both of her children, Gad and Asher, were the names of other Semitic deities. So the God was the Semitic deity of luck. And it's talked about in the Talmud as when you build a home, you can create a bedroom for luck if he should come visit. And so this idea of luck here is embedded in the tribe of God. And so it's in this letter of Yud as well. So something coming in the future, something that has this ultimate potential, some great luck that is coming forward, the foundation of sexuality. This, it's also the first letter of the word Yad, which means hand. So about creation, about making, using your hands for artisanship. Again, that ability to take a thing and make it into something great and wondrous. And I correspond the letter Yud to the Fool card in Tarot, because of that potential, because it's got this ultimate potential of moving forward. It's the 1, but it's also the 0. So it's got this seed that can then move forward and become whatever it's intended to be, whatever its greatest potential is. And I'm also going to pull out one tarot card today. Let's give it a little shuffle and see what wants to come out, give us a little further clarity. I noticed the back of these cards also have these little white flowers that look very much like the flowers that we're dealing with in our flowering herbs today. Okay, there she is. She's flipping right over. Oh, okay, here it is. The Queen of Pentacles. Okay, the Queen of Pentacles is about the body. She's the one who nurtures and takes care. Pentacles are about physical manifestation of things. So we're physically taking care of nature, physical earth. The queen is the one who is the nurturing one. She's got her pentacle. She's cradling it here. She's taking care of this enormous garden. All the things are coming to flower here. And she is the nurturing one. She's the nurturing mother. And is a protecting mother as well. And I think that's great here because we have the bait, which is speaking about our homes and our bodies and the earth. We have the samech, which is about protection, about setting up appropriate boundaries to take care of our bodies. And we have the yud, which is that seed, often represented by that pentacle. You can see down in the corner there's a little tiny bunny. And that's about the fertility, about, again, that foundation of sexuality, that foundation of fertility, about really resting in the potential for what can come next. So as we're taking care of our bodies, make sure to surround yourself with the protection. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The divine has got you. The mother of all, the Shekhinah, is holding you right there. That what's coming next is this potential, this seed that's being planted, and it's time to nurture that, to protect it, to let it come into fruition. So for those of you who chose the flowering chive today, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope if you did, you will like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you here next time.